Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. We are still dealing with the fallout caused by that Wall Street Journal article that appeared over the weekend. Basically, a hit piece to try to make the whole phenomenon look silly, to make the all these reports of government cover-ups look ridiculous and preposterous without any evidence whatsoever. Just what that was some sort of a method instigated by the Pentagon. They used Sean Kirkpatrick as a prop for this. He's the former director of the All Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, and Dr. Kirkpatrick basically made some absurd statements with regard within that article. He talked about how the Malmstrom incident was basically some electromagnetic device that was tested there without. The government didn't tell anybody that was working there about that they were going to test it. It was absolutely absurd, all of it, totally ridiculous. Obviously, there's an effort right now by the Pentagon, by the secrecy group, to try to put the genie back into the jug. That's what it seems like to me. And there's been a lot of different people commenting on this article over the last few days, including Robert Salas, who was there at Malmstrom Air Force Base in 1967. He issued a statement yesterday. We'll talk about that. George Knapp on the podcast Weaponized that he does with Jeremy Corbell commented on this today as well during their recent podcast, and he said he was contacted by the Wall Street Journal himself, and he could tell by the questions he was being asked by the reporter who contacted him that he could tell that this was going to be what the tone of this article was going to be. Basically, there was the word was put out. Hey, we got to put something out there. We got to try to tamp this back down again. And I thought Richard Dolan on his show today during his podcast. He made some interesting comments as well. He said that he thinks it could have something to do with the fact that the Congress is going to be considering the UAP Disclosure Act again. As we all know, that was something that some people in Congress and in the Senate and in the House of Representatives have been trying to include in the National Defense Authorization Act for the last couple of years, but they have been so far unable to do that because there's been blowback from the military-industrial complex. They're obviously not happy with this, and they're using their power. Of course, a lot of different people in Congress receive big-time contributions from the military-industrial complex, and they use some of those people to kill that act, to make sure that it doesn't have any teeth, and that's what's been happening with that. So he thinks it may have something to do with that, because that's going to be coming up again, and the military-industrial complex does not want that passed for a lot of reasons, including like what Dolan talked about. He said like some of the things in that bill, it would create an independent review board, something that unlike Arrow, which is they get to pick who's in charge, basically, their own cronies, right? Whoever, like Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, right? They get to put the person in they get to name the director, and they basically have control of it, and basically they're investigating themselves. They'd rather keep things like that rather than have some independent review board with people that aren't even part of the Pentagon, right? They don't want any of that. And also the eminent domain provisions in there. I mean, anything that right now that was recovered that's in the hands of some aerospace company that's trying to reverse engineer it, they don't want to give up that. They don't want to have all of a sudden have the government say, hey, we own this, not you. They don't like that. So there's all those kinds of things. That's why they don't want that act to pass. And also it provides for the accountability of legacy secrecy, according to Dolan. So a lot of people are talking about this, right? But here's the thing, to me, right, the best antidote against this, right, against this kind of propaganda, because that's what this is. This is propaganda. This is basically an effort to make the Congress feel shameful about considering a bill like the UAP Disclosure Act, because Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick and the Wall Street Journal are saying that this is all nonsense, and that one of the things that they tried to say in that article was that a lot of the UFOs that people saw were actually United States military aircraft that was being secretly tested, but they deliberately didn't tell other military personnel about that fact, and they just they just thought they saw something from another world, and they let them go through life like that. And they tried to say that accounts for a lot of other UFO sightings as well. So it's all nonsense. And apparently there's going to be a part 2 that comes out, according to the Matt Ford with the of the Good Trouble show with Matt Ford, there's going to be a second part of that article coming out where they're going to bash Lou Elizondo. I mean, what else is new? So basically, there's obviously an effort to try to make this go away. And I don't know. Who the hell am I, right? I don't know. Is it a good time for full disclosure or not? Well, I don't know. But here's what I do know. I do know that we actually have absolute proof in our back pocket that we could pull out at any time and say, what are you talking about? Apparently, the Congress, nobody wants to talk about this. I sent it was June 11th of last year, right? Almost a year to the day. Today, right now, when I'm filming this, is June 10th. I sent a letter to the Pentagon and to the Department of Energy via email, laying out this whole Las Vegas alien incident, letting them know that we have absolute proof now that shows that we're not alone, that there were humanoids that showed up, alien, non-human intelligent creatures showed up in a backyard in Vegas back in 2023. We have that evidence now. And actually, since I sent that letter, there was more evidence that we have received with regard to this case that we've amassed. So They had that for a year. They don't respond. They don't even respond to say that, oh, you're wrong, you're crazy, you're stupid, or whatever. There's no debunking whatsoever from anybody. Nobody's able to debunk the findings of Scott Roeder, the crime scene reconstruction expert, and his team, who made the determination that there's no way that this was a fake video. This was a real, authentic video, and there are real creatures in the video, just like the family members stated to the police when they made the 911 call, and to the when the cops showed up to their house that night. During the late hours of May 1st, 2023. So we have absolute proof. So that should be an antidote to these lies that the Pentagon is shoveling out. And another thing I like to point out, it's actually over a month now since I had reached out to my local United States representative here, Dan Muser. Right, I contacted him. I contacted his office, talked to one of his to one of his staffers, and I was instructed, hey, you can send all the information you have in an email. So I put an email together, included different links to certain videos that would help them with this. I was trying to show them, hey, this is absolute proof. If you want to get the Pentagon to tell you the truth, show this evidence during a hearing and have someone in the Pentagon there and confront them with it and say, what are you talking about? You don't know that you say there's no aliens or anything here. How come we have aliens landing in the backyard of a family here? Here's the evidence right here, right in front of your face. What do you have to say to it now? I think you could put them on the spot with it. But I guess that's just a bridge too far in the minds of some people, obviously, because I've received nothing. Nothing. No. You would think that somebody would try to debunk it. You know why? They can't do it. If they could, they would. I mean, I've been called names by some debunkers. That's about it. Outside of that, no one has tried to debunk this. There's been no analysis, no successful refutation whatsoever has been presented. It's amazing, actually, to me. But we'll get into all of this as we go through this all today here in this episode. I want to start off here with this letter that was released yesterday by Robert Salas. Excuse me, actually, this was actually June 7th. He wrote it. Anyway, he wrote, and this was with regard to the article from the Wall Street Journal that was written by Joel Schechtman and Aruna Viswanathan. And he writes, since my name was mentioned in this article with respect to an incident I experienced while I was a Minuteman I missile launch officer in command of a launch control facility in Montana designated Oscar 1, and false representations were made, I find it necessary to respond to those statements in the referenced article. The article on page 8 states that Mr. Sean Kirkpatrick, actually Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick's team of the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office discovered a terrestrial explanation of what occurred. It further states that a large electromagnetic generator requiring heavy concrete supports and 60-foot posts supporting a platform was constructed near the front gate of the Oscar 1 LCF, where it would fire a high-voltage burst of energy, creating an electromagnetic pulse, or EMP, to determine any vulnerabilities to our equipment and missiles. It further states, when activated, this device, placed on a portable platform 60 feet above the facility, would gather power until it glowed, sometimes with a blinding orange light. It would then fire a burst of energy that could resemble lightning. The electromagnetic pulses snaked down cables connected to the bunker where launch commanders like Salas sat, disrupting the guidance systems, disabling the weapons, and haunting the men to this day. But any public leak of the test at the time would have allowed Russia to know that America's nuclear arsenal could be disabled in a first strike. The witnesses were kept in the dark. Now, before I continue with the rest of Salas's rebuttal here, I just want to point out that this case from 1967 in Malmstrom, where they had 10 nuclear missiles and they were all shut down somehow. Flying saucers showed up. There were witnesses to this that was hovering over the base, and then it took off at incredible speed after it was all done, and then the systems went back online. That's what happened. But now they're trying to... Kirkpatrick shared this fantasy with the Wall Street Journal, and the Wall Street Journal ran with it like it was true. And obviously, the Wall Street Journal, they're in bed with the military-industrial complex. They don't like this either. Obviously, they must be receiving something. There's a connection here, right? I'm sure it has something to do with money and power. That's what's going on. Let's just keep it simple. But anyway, here's Salas's response. He says, "My response to this fantasy is as follows. Number one, I gave an over 2-hour presentation to 2 members of the Arrow team on February 15, 2023. At the end of my presentation, I asked them if they were going to contact the U.S. Air Force to verify the factual events as I represented them. They replied that they would not be doing so because of the lack of cooperation from the United States Air Force. They never informed me that they had discovered some terrestrial explanation to my incident as stated above. Number 2, the United States Air Force was certainly aware of the potential damage as a result of EMP from a nearby nuclear explosion, and I and my co-author James Klotz wrote about this subject in our book, Fated Giant. In addition, we listed references to EMP studies. With supporting statements from members of the Boeing investigative team, we concluded that EMP testing was not the cause of the missile shutdowns. If this had been the case, it surely would have been reflected in the historical documents and communications with investigators we received from that period. Number 3, all Minuteman crew members had high security clearances. We had detailed briefings, both classified and unclassified, on any activities in the field that could impact the status of our missile readiness each time we were sent out on alert duties. In the 3 years I was assigned as a missile launch officer at Malmstrom Air Force Base, I was never briefed about any EMP testing on operational missiles. Number 4, it would have been irresponsible and unthinkable for the United States Air Force to jeopardize the operational status of these weapons by doing such tests as they were, in part, the basis of our strategic national security, and especially since this time period was during the Cold War and we were engaged in the Vietnam War and we had a near-nuclear war during the Cuban Missile Crisis only a few years earlier. Number 5, as stated above, the EMP generator equipment would have involved a prolonged installation process in plain sight of our security team at ground level at our LCF. Those activities would have been reported to us in the Underground Launch Control Center, or LCC, since we were in command of the facility. Our topside personnel never reported to us any such activity. Let me just stop there. That's because there was no such activity. This is a complete, absolute fabrication. Whether Kirkpatrick dreamed this one up himself, or somebody told him to dream it, or somebody helped him dream it up, I don't know how they did it, right? But they are putting out blatant disinformation in that Wall Street Journal article. This is something to really be concerned about, to be this bold about lying about something about UFOs. It's incredible to me. Anyway, continuing. Number 6, during our incident, our flight security controller expressed extreme fear when reporting to me an object hovering just above the front gate of our LCF. In fact, all the security personnel were very frightened, as we later learned. If there had been some sort of authorized test going on, they would not have experienced such fear. During our incident, our status panel showed an indication of possible incursion into 2 launch facilities, or LFs, the location of missiles. Security teams were sent to those sites to investigate, but as they approached them, they reported seeing the same type of object hovering above those missiles. They again were so frightened to see them, they requested to go no further and return to the LCF. Mr. Ray Fowler was a manager of electrical systems for the Minuteman I missile systems during the period of the Echo and Oscar flight incidents. He worked for Sylvania Corporation, which was the contractor for those systems. Fowler had employees stationed at Malmstrom during this period who reported to him details of those incidents, including the reports of UFO activity. According to his affidavit, there was no report to him about conducting EMP testing at the operational sites where missiles were disabled. One of the documents we received from our our Freedom of Information Act request was a telex from Strategic Air Command to various Minuteman bases. The original classification of this telex was secret. The subject was loss of strategic alert Echo flight, Malmstrom Air Force Base, and dated March 17, 1967. In the body of this telex, it stated, "The fact that no apparent reason for the loss of 10 missiles can be readily identified is cause for grave concern to this headquarters. We must have an in-depth analysis to determine cause and corrective action, and we must know and as quickly as possible what the impact is to the fleet, if any. Such a statement would not have been made by SAC headquarters if the shutdowns had resulted from EMP testing." And then number 10, per the SAC request, Boeing established an investigative team. It was headed by Mr. Robert Kaminsky, who had been charged with running the Minuteman troubleshooting team. He contacted me shortly after I went public about my incident. He wrote a long letter in which he stated, "The team met with me to report their findings, and it was decided that the final report would have nothing significant in it to explain what happened at E-flight. There was no technical explanation that could explain the event. There was no mention of any EMP testing with respect to this or any other incident." Number 11, the two Boeing engineers requested by name in the SAC telex, Riggert and Dutton, confirmed in the wing history report that electrical power problems were ruled out as a possible cause. And number 12, according to the Department of Energy, there was no nuclear testing conducted on March 16th or March 24th that could have been a source of EMP. Number 13, there were multiple reports of UFO sightings near and over Malmstrom Air Force Base on the evening of March 24th, 1967, as stated in a report by the base operations officer. Number 14, other witnesses to those and other sightings could be available to testify under improved witness protection assurances. I and other witnesses are available and willing to testify under oath as to the truth of the above statements. I am sending the rebuttal to the Wall Street Journal and ask that they publish it and respond to the rebuttal statements we listed above. Now, here's the thing with this letter that Solis penned after he read this article. You know, why didn't the Wall Street Journal contact him and ask him these questions? I mean, they could have, avoided putting this fantasy in the story, but they didn't. They didn't even bother. They don't want the truth. That's why. This was a deliberate effort, no question about it. A deliberate effort to put out disinformation about UFOs and the secrecy program and the reverse engineering and crash retrieval programs. That's what this is. That's what this is all about. It's about trying to make this all go away again. Because they don't like it. They don't want to do it. Anyway, let's go over. I want to talk about what George Knapp had to say. Actually, here was a good post from Joe Murgia, the UFO Joe on Twitter X. He always has good stuff. But anyway, he basically provided a written transcript of what George Knapp said during his weaponized episode today. So we're going to go use that for this. And anyway, it says this. Great stuff from George on today's Weaponized Pod. Here's what George Knapp had to say. So this Wall Street Journal article, I didn't read it for a day or so, and then I dived in. I was reluctant to do it. I have to tell you that Wall Street Journal reporter Joel Schechtman reached out to me. He reached out to me a number of times. I did talk to him for about 10-15 minutes, and in that short period of time, it became very clear what the marching orders were for this piece and what his theme was going to be. Certainly the flavor I got from reading it was that this came from Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, this guy who ran the Arrow program for just over a year and who can't seem to let it go. Thin-skinned guy, he keeps popping back up to dismiss anybody who comes forward with information, to discourage whistleblowers, to lie to Congress, or at least what sounds like lies. This article, I think, is getting a lot of attention, as I'm sure they knew it would, but it reeks of the same old steaming piles of BS that these secret keepers have been shoveling for decades. Let me just stop there for a second. That was exactly my sentiment when I put the title for the previous podcast together. I think I called it a steaming loaf of BS, because that's what it is. That's what it is. That's what the Wall Street Journal basically transformed into words that were given to them. They didn't even use any sources. You think they would have contacted some of the people that were directly affected by this, like Robert Solis, for instance, but they didn't. Instead, they talked to Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, and they ran with that phony story. They didn't even provide any evidence to back up any of the stuff that he was saying. So absurd. Anyway, continuing here, it says, they're just adding what seems to me to be a new layer of excrement on top of what they've already been peddling for a long time. New wrinkles. it's struck me as something that was kind of something sophisticated, a bit of chicanery, and I'm sure it's going to work on some people, maybe on some members of Congress, a few of whom probably were never comfortable digging into this topic to begin with, and now they got a reason to go ahead and walk away from it because the Wall Street Journal says it's all a bunch of baloney, it's mythology. Let me just stop again. Yeah, that's what's going to happen. That's most certainly is going to have an effect on people in Congress. It's going to have an effect on the readers of the Wall Street Journal, people who really don't have a big interest in this. They'll just read this and think it's total. Oh, UFOs. It is nonsense after all. Oh, it was all our stuff that they were seeing all these years, just secret tests and because we're all dummies, they didn't tell us and they kept it secret because they didn't want to tell us because it was a secret and they didn't want to tell us, so they just let us believe it was aliens from outer space. And with regard to the Malmstrom incident, that was just us testing some EMP device. We shut over nuclear missiles. Shut 10 of them down to see what would happen. It's all nonsense. That's not something that they would have done. There's no way they would have done something like that. They would have at least told the people working there. And like Robert Salas said, the people working there would have saw them bringing this thing in. It's all such a bogus lie. It's incredible. But they are trying to put the cat back into the bag here. I'd like to know who's behind this. Like who's giving these orders. I'd like to know that. Anyway, continuing here with what George had to say. I have to tell you, Wall Street Journal, I subscribe to that paper. I think it is a great newspaper, and I know that I looked up some background when the reporter, Joel Sheckman, was trying to get a hold of me to dig into who he was before I called him back. And really, he's a pretty good reporter. He's done some really good stuff, but I think somebody whispered in his ear and gave him a theme for his article. And when he went out to collect information and testimony that would back that up and justify it, and ignored a lot of stuff that didn't fit into it exactly. It's a bad sign for a reporter. I was a reporter for about 14 years at various different newspapers across the country, Pennsylvania, Iowa, and Hawaii. And, you have to go in with an unbiased eye. You just have to do it. You have to leave that stuff at the door. You got to go in fresh. You got to make sure you contact the people on both sides of a certain issue. You just don't contact one person, or like Sean Kirkpatrick here, the government, basically the former government employee who ran Arrow, and you don't contact other people like Robert Salas. You need to contact everybody, as many people as you can. And the Wall Street Journal, they have the resources. They could do this. Is easy for them. I mean, these people would most certainly, if they had contacted them, they would have certainly returned their calls or talked to them. They would have provided information that could have been used in the article and could have at least helped balance it out. They could have at least, like Robert Salas would have said, hey, whatever he's saying here, this is complete, absolute fabrication. This is a lie. But see, that's not what they wanted here. That's all they wanted people to see was the lie. So that's the Wall Street Journal is complicit here. Obviously, they're tied to the military-industrial complex. I don't know if it's money and power that's at stake here for them. Who knows? But they most certainly, they were under the marching orders of the Pentagon when it comes to that article. There's just no question about it. Anyway, continuing with what George had to say. The article, the headline is The Pentagon Disinformation That Fueled America's UFO Mythology. Of course, UFO mythology. You can see where that's going. He says the U.S. military fabricated evidence of alien technology and allowed rumors to fester to cover up real secret weapons programs. The two reporters say they've interviewed dozens of people. They probably have, but I suspect that at least some of them, the ones that told them something that didn't fit with their theme, they left that stuff out. At least they left it out of the first part. Yeah, there's a second part coming out. We're going to see, according to Matt Ford, I guess we'll see what's going on with that. They're gonna run Lou Elizondo through the coals again, but that's something he's used to that by this point, I'm sure. But I guess he's bracing for that. Anyway, continuing. I looked at Joel Sheckman's background, and this is what it says about him on X. Wall Street Journal, enterprise reporter, espionage, psyops, cyber, and corruption. So he's been in that world. He's been working with national security people on cyber crimes, espionage, psyops. And I'm sure, like most reporters who work a beat, he's developed sources, friendships even in that world. So sometimes, there's a danger when you work a beat a long time, whether it's organized crime or whatever, that you get co-opted a little bit. And I think he tends to give those people who whispered this story into his ear a lot more credibility than people who have a much different opinion. Well, if that's the case, that's a shame, because that's not the way a reporter's supposed to handle themselves. But I guess there is that possibility if you're doing the same beat for many, many years, you're basically, you become a little bit biased and you don't even realize it. But anyway, that wasn't me though. I was at certain places for many years. I was in Iowa, for instance, for 5.5 years, and I didn't allow that kind of thing to happen. Anyway, continuing, I would have to say that it struck me as reminiscent of what we've seen before, is that every year or two some national reporter decides to jump into the UFO pool. Call it parachute journalism. You and I have talked about it before. They've done all this stuff on national security issues. They worked with the Pentagon. They get a pretty big head about themselves and knowing what really is going on, and they parachute into the UFO subject. They spend a couple of weeks kind of getting up to speed, and then they declare the whole thing solved. The whole thing's, it's all malarkey. I've solved it. You can move on now. You don't have to waste any time on UFOs. Yeah, you think some of these people, they think they're so smart. They think, I mean, it takes a long time to get a good grasp on the history of the UFO phenomenon and the government cover-up. I mean, you got to start with books like this right here. Richard Dolan books. Look at how thick this baby is. UFOs in the National Security State. That's just volume 1, and I know I have volume 2 sitting around here someplace. It takes a lot of research, a lot of time, a lot of effort, and until you can understand this. And obviously, there's these guys who wrote that article. They do not understand this issue. They would have been asking different questions. There's no way you would, if you understood this issue, you would not have written a story like that. There's just no way. But anyway. George continues, finishes it up here. It says, I know what happens because that's the way I felt. You know, you and I have talked about, he's talking to Jeremy Corbell. You and I have talked about it before. When I started down this road, I think, gosh, this UFO topic is a mess. Give me 6 months and I'll have this thing all figured out. And of course, now it's 36 years later and I know less than I did then. I know more, but I understand less. That's a great way to say it, George. We all love George Knapp. If it wasn't for George Knapp, we wouldn't know about the Bob Lazar story, amongst many other great things that he's done over the years. The interviews with different people about UFOs. He's just a great person in this community to have, really. You gotta love George Knapp. I love listening to the guy. He's a great person. And I'm glad to see him talking, speaking up against what happened here, what's going on. But like I've been talking about, you know what? There is there's a way to combat this. There's an antidote. There's a bug spray. You can spray back at them. Here's the evidence, you dopes. You don't think we know? You think we're all stupid, right? They want this covered up, folks. They don't want anything. That's why they're not talking about the Vegas aliens. Let me just tell you. I sent that letter out. That was a month ago. Guess what? I've received nothing in return. They're not going to talk about this in Congress. They know what it will do. They know that it will spell the end for this whole cover-up, and it will be too much for the public. So that's why they're not going to talk about it. Instead, we're going to talk about it here on my podcast. And I'm going to share now with you the letter that I sent that I've received no response from. And this was it was sent off to Washington a month ago. I have not heard it from anyone in the UAP caucus. I was under the belief that they have this, right? But I have not heard anything. I guess they're more interested in just get rid of Arrow right now and things like that, and just maybe forget about UFOs for the time being because we don't want to talk about it because the Wall Street Journal says it's all bogus anyway. Even though we have evidence that shows that it's not bogus. We have absolute proof that shows aliens came into this country, into Nevada, back in 2023. And we know that it's happened many more times than that, right? Of course, there's alien encounters all the time, right? It's been every decade, all the time. Many tens of thousands of incidents, right? UFO encounters, alien encounters, or both, right? It's been going on a long time. Unfortunately, we never really had that solid evidence that would show people that this is a real thing, that this is not phony, this isn't something that people just dream up. We have the absolute proof now. And that's the antidote to this kind of nonsense, to this kind of BS. Anyway, I digress. I want to talk about this letter here that I sent. Anyway, here it is. Dear Mr. Muser, I'm going to cut to the chase. Absolute proof of a non-human intelligent presence on Earth has been available within the public domain for more than a year now, and more evidence that supports this conclusion continues to emerge. Meanwhile, members of the U.S. Congress's UAP caucus have been meeting with whistleblowers and other UFO personalities to hear testimony regarding alleged secret programs to retrieve, study, and reverse engineer crashed alien craft. One whistleblower, former Air Force official David Grush, testified under oath before a congressional committee that the government has also recovered alien biologics. Department of Defense officials continue to tell the public that they know nothing about NHI or their craft and that there is no cover-up. Pentagon officials have not been telling the truth about what they know about this phenomenon for decades, and they continue to do so. That is the only conclusion one can make when taking into consideration the totality of evidence related to the Las Vegas alien incident. As has been reported by some mainstream news outlets over the past couple of years, an object that came from the sky made a hard landing in the backyard of the Kenmore family of Las Vegas, Nevada, just before midnight on April 30th, 2023. At around midnight on May 1st, 2023, two members of the family, Father Bobby and his teenage son Angel, called 911 to report two tall alien beings in their backyard.
We were working, and we just see in a corner of our eye something fall down from the sky, and it was with light, and when it hit down, it was like a big impact, and we felt it. We felt like an energy. And then we hear like a lot of footsteps near us. And then we have a big equipment, and we see, and there's like an 8-foot person beside it, and another one's inside, and it has big eyes and looking at us, and it's still there.
Okay, where is this on your property?
In my backyard. I swear to God, this is not a joke. This is actually, we're terrified of it.
So there's two people or two subjects that are in your backyard?
Correct, and they're very large. They're like 8 foot. 9 feet, 10 foot, I don't know. They look like aliens to us. Big eyes, they have big eyes, like I can't explain it. And big mouth. They're shiny eyes, and they're not human. They're 100% they're not human.
By the time law enforcement officials arrived an hour later, the object and creatures were apparently gone, and all that was left was a shocked and terrified family. The 911 call, along with body camera footage of police officers meeting with family members directly after their encounter, were made available by the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. Additionally, body cam footage from a different officer had earlier captured the object falling from the sky. The object was also captured on video by other sources as well, including from car cameras and private home security cameras. Most importantly, the family filmed 1 minute and 41 seconds worth of footage with a cell phone camera that, when examined later by evidence specialists, revealed that non-human intelligent beings were in fact present in the yard before police arrived. It was also discovered that the creatures had employed some sort of cloaking ability that made it difficult to film them properly. The object itself, according to Angel Kenmore, sported blue and green lights as it descended into their backyard, and the instant it touched ground, it suddenly became hard to see. He and his brother Joshua were in the yard working on their father's truck at the time the object appeared. Angel said when you looked in the area where the object had landed, everything appeared blurry, but when you looked in other areas of the yard, everything appeared normal. Directly after the object landed, Angel reported that he heard what sounded like thousands of footsteps running in various directions. He said he was then confronted with an alien that stood 8 to 10 feet tall, and when their eyes met, he suffered a temporary paralysis. Bobby, the father, told the 911 dispatcher that when he walked out the back door to investigate, he felt a strange energy that paralyzed him momentarily too. The father and two sons armed themselves with handguns and attempted to re-enter the backyard via a gate, while Mother Concha filmed the action with a cell phone. No sooner did the three enter the yard that one of the creatures emerged from the darkness and scared all of them back out. The family continued to film the yard for a few more moments before deciding to call 911. By June of 2023, the story became big news and was reported across the world. Some people claimed it was a hoax, while others claimed the object was only a meteor and that the family got frightened over nothing. The video was studied and debated by internet sleuths for the next year, but in late March 2024, there was a breakthrough. Crime scene reconstruction expert Scott Roeder, who has over 30 years' experience and operates Ohio-based firm Evidence Room, determined that the cell phone footage was authentic and that no special effects were added to it. He made a presentation on my podcast, Extraterrestrial Reality, on April 2nd, 2024, where he explained how his analysis proves, beyond any doubt, that the family had actually encountered non-human intelligent beings and that the video proved it. Roeder also presented evidence that revealed the object could not have been a meteor. A private home security camera that captured the object falling from the sky revealed it made a strange oscillating sound just before the hard landing. Video captured from a self-driving car that had the ability to film in long-wave infrared revealed that the object had no heat signature. Had it been a meteor, it would have registered a heat signature. By June of 2024, more alien creatures were found within the cell phone footage, creatures the family members themselves did not even know were there during their encounter, further cementing the incident's legitimacy. At that point, I decided to alert the Department of Defense and Department of Energy via email about the evidence, proving we're not alone. That email never received a response. response. Here is the contents of that email. And then I provided a link to the email that I had sent to the Department of Defense and Department of Energy. And continuing here with the letter, it says, more recently I uploaded a new episode for the 2-year anniversary of the incident on my Spotify and YouTube channels. That episode summarizes much of the research that has been discussed on my channel over the past year. In it, you will see and hear much of, but not all of, the visual and audio evidence associated with the case. Here are links to that episode. Then I have different links, 2 different links to the 2 different episodes on Spotify and YouTube. In another recent episode, I detailed how OpenAI's ChatGPT, after examining some of the evidence gathered thus far, determined that there is a greater than 99% chance of the incident involved actual NHI. And here are the links to that episode. So I provided links to a couple of episodes as well as to the letter that I had sent to the DOD, and that was over a month ago now, ladies and gentlemen, and I have not received any response whatsoever since that went out, and I don't think I will, just like I did not receive anything from the Pentagon or the Department of Energy. I mean, not even like someone saying, hey, you're crazy, this is what. No one's ever been able to sit down and tell any of us, right? And all of the people who have been pushing this story, right? Nobody has to this point, right? Since over a year now since Scott Roeder made that presentation where he presented his analysis showing that there's no way that this was faked and this is actually real, and that the incident was real and that there were really alien creatures in there. There's no one has stepped forward with any sort of analysis to refute it. They can't do it. Not even the government. The government won't even say, hey, you know what? We think you're crazy. We don't think this is the reason, and this is the reason why we don't believe what you're telling us. Like, no one's ever sat down and tried to explain that, because they can't. That's why, because it is real. It proves that we're not alone, and that's why they don't want to talk about it, because then that will be too much. They don't want to go there yet. You see the forces that are trying to put this back into the bottle. They are doing it again right now. They have the Wall Street Journal in their back pocket, obviously, and they're pumping out BS, and they're about to do another article where they're going to slam Lou Elizondo all over again. It's all nonsense, folks. They're just playing games, and they have control of the media as well right now. They really do. I mean, the government is controlling the media right now. The media doesn't want to talk about this. I mean, obviously they're being told not to. Anyway, continuing here, no reasonable, critically minded person could absorb the totality of this evidence and walk away believing it means nothing. It is literally the biggest story of all time. It proves unequivocally that we are not alone. There are too many elements, too many moving parts, too many witnesses that make it impossible to debunk. After Roeder appeared on my podcast more than a year ago and revealed his stunning findings, I was certain that many of the bigger known UFO disclosure advocates would point to this evidence as the definitive proof necessary to help prod the control group within the Pentagon to finally come clean with the public and elected officials. Apparently, these advocates have ulterior agendas, however, because most of them have dismissed it without providing any analysis or reasoning that makes any sense. Meanwhile, UFO debunkers have been running away from this proof faster than Dracula fleeing from a crucifix because they are incapable of debunking it. The bipartisan UAP caucus in the House of Representatives should consider presenting this evidence to Department of Defense officials during a public hearing and demand an explanation. Unelected bureaucrats have controlled the narrative on this subject for far too long, and it is time for the people's representatives in Congress to put an end to this moratorium on truth. It doesn't matter anymore whether the people behind the cover-up like it or not. The fact is, this proof is in the public domain now. Probably about 90% of the people who find my podcast and comment on my episodes agree with Roeder and my reporting. Every day that goes by, more and more smart, critically minded individuals from all across the world who come upon this evidence quickly realize it represents a checkmate. In conclusion, I am unsure whether Mr. Muser will be interested in championing it himself in the House, but I ask that he at least pass this information off to his colleagues in the UAP caucus. If they are looking for a device to finally put those responsible for the cover-up on the spot, this is it. The DoD annual budget is nearly $1 trillion. I would find it very difficult to believe that they are completely unaware of the fact that an NHI craft toting NHI beings most certainly landed in the backyard of Las Vegas family in 2023. How could the best funded military on the planet not be aware of the fact that an alien craft landed on American soil? How could it be that the military doesn't know this, yet some American citizens do know it? This is an absolute insult to intelligence, and many Americans are tired of being gaslighted when it comes to this phenomenon. It is time to tell the truth about this. The jig is up. Thank you for your attention on this matter. It is greatly appreciated. Sincerely, yours truly. And as you can see, people don't like this. People don't like when they get something like this tossed in their face. The people in power absolutely hate this letter. Let me tell you something. They hate this letter because they know that I'm right? They know that I'm right. They can't ever respond to it. Instead, you see what's happening now out there in the world, right? They're still trying to cover this up, and they're ignoring the proof that's right there in front of everybody to see. But you know what? I don't expect the Congress to do anything at this point. I'm surprised. I'm not surprised. I'm surprised and I'm not surprised. I thought maybe if I passed this off to the UAP caucus, maybe they would look at it and say, you know what, maybe we should do something with this. But I haven't heard anything as of yet, and it's over a month now. But then again, where are the people to debunk this? Like, I want someone to step forward and tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me why Scott Roeder's wrong. Tell me why all these other people, like Chris Lathrop, who's been investigating this. I want to know how are we all wrong about this? We're looking at the totality of this evidence, and a lot of people who found my podcast and absorb that evidence themselves, they see the same things that we're seeing. How come no one else wants to talk about this? Is it because it's too much? Maybe that's what's going on here, and this evidence is just gonna float out there on the outskirts of this for a while, for a few more years or whatever. Who knows? But what they're doing now makes me angry, and that's why I'm talking about this, because this is the antidote. If they're telling you that all of this is all nonsense and they have no proof, and they're still trying to basically trying to re-up the stigma here. That's what it seems like they're doing there with that Wall Street Journal article. If they're trying to do that, well, it's time to throw this back in their face again, right? Where's everyone else in the UFO community? Why doesn't anybody else get behind this? Or at least tell me why I'm crazy. Explain to me where everything is wrong with this case, where we're going wrong with it. Tell me why this doesn't represent proof. I see alien faces in this video, right? There are alien faces. The AI, a dumb AI program that was part of my Cyberlink Power Director program, recognized an alien face. Recognize that little guy. Recognizes that there's something there. Another alien too. There's aliens in that video. We see them. You could see them. The people said that there were aliens in their backyard. What more do you need? You have the self-driving car from Amazon now, the taxi, the robo-taxi that filmed it. We now know what filmed it, right? We have that evidence, and we see it. It didn't have a heat signature. That means it could not have been a meteor. The evidence is there. This is in totality. There's no way you could deny this. I mean, just based on what we have right here, we don't even need the family's MIA right now, right? Nobody knows where they are. They don't want to talk about this anymore, right? But it doesn't matter. We already have the proof, right? It's right there. We know. The police believe the people. What are we waiting for? What's going on here? Show this to the Pentagon. Show this to the Wall Street Journal. Put this on the news. Where's the big names at? They should be talking about this. This shows that there are aliens here. There's no doubt. You could end it right now, right here. It's over. More people need to get behind this already. What the hell's going on? Or at least tell me why I'm wrong. I want someone to explain to me why we're wrong about this. I dare somebody to come up and try to explain it. Maybe if you have something, I'll agree with you. I've been a reporter for many years, and I know that I'm right on this. But if somebody somehow is able to come up with a presentation to me to show me where I'm wrong, why I'm wrong about this, hey, and somehow it convinces me, hey, maybe I'll change my tune on this. But I don't see that happening. That's why no one's talking about it, because they know what it means. But hey, where is everybody? I want to see the debunkers or anybody, people in the UFO community. Tell me why I'm wrong. Where's the Pentagon or people in the UAP caucus? How come nobody wants to talk about this? Tell me why this doesn't constitute evidence. We have a top crime scene reconstruction expert with over 30 years experience saying it does. So where's everybody at? How come no one else has any counter argument to this evidence? There is none. Other than say, oh, it's raccoons and coyotes. That's what I think it is. Oh, I think you're stupid and stuff like that. That's all I got. There's no analysis. No successful refutation to date. This is where you slam back in their face with this article. That piece of garbage crap Wall Street Journal article, you say, okay, I know what you're trying to do here because we have the evidence. We know this is already real, so you have to know about this stuff. You have to know that we're not alone here. We have something coming down in someone's backyard on American soil. You have to know about this. You have to know about these activities. You can't be totally stupid about them. Why aren't they talking about it? That's what I like to know. Anyway, I just want to say this. I want to say thank you all for joining me today. Until next time.